What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso, joined 5 hours later by Paul, and Will may hop on at some point. We're going to do a super quick emergency podcast reaction. The New York Jets have traded, finally, for Davante Adams, third round pick. That could be a second rounder. Going to do a much longer one tonight on last night and this trade with CR that will be in our normal pod slot in War Room. But Paul, we have to get a few minutes up quick here first thing in the morning. What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it feels a little dampened by what happened last night, and especially because we've been talking about this for, I think you already tweeted it, but we've been talking about this for a year now, right? They tried to get him last year. They tried to pry him away. Raiders wouldn't give him up. And now here we are a year later, and we get it done. So it's a little bit anticlimactic as far as trades go. All we were really waiting on was the compensation and whether or not they were actually going to move forward with it or decide that this season was over. So look, I think it's a good sign that that they decided to go all in again and try to make something happen here. But it does feel a little anticlimactic, because of what happened last night and because of how long it's dragged.
Yeah, I think you said it well in that, that's a perfect way to describe it. It feels like this trade has been in the works for 15 months, and it was finally got over the hump. I wish it could have happened 3 weeks ago, because I think the Jets probably win 2 of their last 3 games if it had. They've literally lost multiple games because their quarterback and receiver were not on the same page with the game on the line, and no one is on the same page with Aaron Rodgers more than Davante Adams. So we've been in favor of this trade because you want to get better, and you have a very tight window here with Aaron Rodgers. You already fired Rob Saleh. You do need this part of your offense without a doubt, and the compensation is minimal. Again, they have the money to make this work in the short term, and giving up a third or second round pick that's only going to be a second round pick if certain conditions are met, especially when they now may be getting a pick back for Hassan Reddick with the latest leaks we've heard, it's going to come through in the wash. And Reddick, Adams, in many ways, as much as we love Garrett Wilson, if Adams is at his best, he immediately becomes their best all-around receiver, best offensive playmaker. I think by a pretty comfortable margin, especially with his chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. I think the hope is going to be, can this guy play versus Pittsburgh, as the Jets have to beat Pittsburgh. There's no more time to lose games in the AFC. Any concerns about the compensation level, the chemistry on the offense? What do you think the receiver rotation looks like now with Adams in the mix?
Well, I think it goes from a position of weakness to a position of strength. You now have 3 guys on this roster who have been number 1 wide receivers at some point in their careers, whether it be here or elsewhere. And, it kind of strengthens the whole thing, because now you have a guy like Allen Lazard, who we were all terrified about being wide receiver 3 or 4 this year, who's actually playing pretty well and playing like wide receiver 2, that actually is now wide receiver 3. And so it allows you to be a lot craftier with Garrett Wilson, I think. And I think Davante Adams is going to be able to communicate how to work with Aaron Rodgers pretty well to Garrett Wilson. So I think it's really hard to find a downside here. I don't think you're going to find anybody that's going to say Adams is washed up or anything like that. I also don't think that the injury was real. That's a personal opinion. I'm not saying that it's a fake hamstring injury and it's a conspiracy, but it was funny to listen to these guys as they're breaking the trade being like, oh yeah, I think his hamstring is, it was a 3-week injury. He'll probably be back soon. Yeah, he just wasn't playing for the Raiders until he got traded. And so I think it's really hard to find a downside here. I'm curious to see what the conditions are that bring this to a third to a second. I know these are traditionally personal performance, but I think in this case, it wouldn't be beyond me to think maybe that this could be a team related performance incentive. And also nobody said the word tampering yet. And I hope that doesn't come up. But that could change the math a little bit too if that word gets thrown around at some point. But listen, I'm okay with the compensation. Changes needed to be made. This doesn't fix everything. I think you could spare me the takes about, can he block for Aaron Rodgers and can he kick field goals? I know, right? There's more issues with this team, but the fact is this was an issue. The compensation is pretty much okay. It's in line with where we thought it would be. It's not 2 second-round picks, so I'm good with it. And there's an out next year if, for whatever reason, if Rodgers doesn't want to come back or if this doesn't work or whatever the case may be, the money's not guaranteed next year. So there's an out.
Yeah, this is not something that's going to cripple them even in the medium term, never mind the long term. And it's just going to make them better at a position of need. The Jets are going to get all the crap and all the jokes from everyone this week. LOL Jets. They're 2-4. Rodgers is getting all his buddies back together. He's running the team. And look, until they win games, it is what it is. People are going to
Yep.
poke and make fun
Fine.
of it. They win games if you don't like it. It's not that complicated, especially when you're in prime time every freaking night. But if you've been watching this team, the reason that we've been advocating for this trade, it's been a very clear one-to-one thing. Their receivers have lacked chemistry with their quarterback. And sometimes it's been the receiver's fault. Sometimes it's been Rodgers' fault, but it's cost them multiple games now. Adams will solve that. It should allow them to use Garrett Wilson down the field more, whereas Adams does more of that intermediate short game work and the rhythm work. A lot of the targets that have been going to Lazard or have been funneled to Mike Williams that just haven't been working. I don't think, like some people have speculated, this guarantees that Mike Williams is going to be traded, although it wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world. There's nothing wrong with having depth and multiple good receivers, by the way, and guys who can do different things. That's part of the point of this trade as well, to stack up multiple options that you could attack with. So I think overall, not a surprising move. I think most of us thought this would happen and predicted it would happen right around now. It's just going to be fun and interesting to see in action now and what kind of tangible impact it immediately makes. And I do really hope he can be ready to go for Pittsburgh, because they do need him, and they need guys who can score touchdowns. And Davante Adams, when he is humming with Aaron Rodgers, can score touchdowns. And we saw it in person last night. This team could not break the plane. They need to be able to break the plane and score touchdowns. So any final thoughts, PK? 2 pods in 8 hours, and then we're going to have a little more tonight.
3 and 24, actually. No, I think a couple things. I want to try not to be a homer here. So what I'm about to say is these are not predictions. These are theories, right? And so, number one, everything we talked about in the stadium last night, this trade helps all of that. This is a guy who knows how to score touchdowns. He knows how to close. He knows how to finish. The other thing we talked about a bunch in the stadium last night was stretching the defense and being able to go up top, even if you don't get a completion, because then it opens up some stuff you can do underneath. Just back the defense up. Just show them you can go deep on them, and this will help with that. In fact, the one time we said it in the stadium last night, they did go deep, and they got a PI penalty. Unfortunately, it was negated by...
Of course, there was illegal motion.
By an illegal motion, right. So I think that's another thing to note, is that this could not only potentially help the wide receiver core, but it might also help the running backs. This could potentially open up the middle of the field for Brees if we have that threat of being able to open things up more with Davante. And the last thing I'll say is you're not going to find anybody who dislikes Woody Johnson more than me. I've been pretty vocal about that, but cutting bait with Saleh and being willing to eat Davante Adams money are both good moves. And those are both choices that Woody made, and credit where it's due. Good job. You were willing to cut bait in the middle of the season with something that wasn't working, and you were willing to eat some more money, even though you've already invested a lot of money into the wide receiver core. So good on him for that. And again, I'm not saying that this fixes everything, but these are 2 good moves that kind of put the team going in the right direction. So hopefully it can open things up.
Just when we thought we were out, they pull us back in. Will be another very interesting week in Jets land. I think we'll keep an eye on the Reddick situation. More to come tonight. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll talk to you soon.